Government and the United Nations sources put the membership of Allied Democratic Forces, in short ADF, between 1500 and 2000, with few more recruiting agencies throughout the countries of Eastern Africa and the Horn region. ADF attacks villages, killing people using machetes and guns. They've also abducted hundreds over the years from Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. According to official sources, in October 2019, 22,000 Congolese army soldiers under the command of 5 generals started an operation against the ADF rebels and pushed them out of their stronghold from the Kiev region at Beni, killing dozens, including some of their leaders, and arrested many. But ever since, in some part of that region, the situation has become even more dangerous. ADF fighters have killed nearly 1,000 people since the offensive began. Congolese army officials argued in war, loss and days are inevitable, but assured victory finally is on their side. They declared ADF doesn't have the capacity anymore to fight the military, but facing its final eviction, turn it back onto defenseless villagers, which is the fundamental characteristics of terrorists to make civilians lose confidence in the security forces' ability to protect them. Was that the case of the recent bombing in Kampala by the Allied Democratic Forces? Let's move and see. IS claim responsible for the recent bombing at Kampala. 3 explosions took place at 2 places, near the central police station and in front of the parliament, which took 6 people's lives and 33 more wounded. The 3 suicide bombers took another 2 police officers' lives and 1 civilian right away. The Allied Democratic Forces was formed by Jamil Mukulu, an ultra-conservative Ugandan Muslim, in 1989. Mukulu was baptized as a Catholic, but later converted to Islam, which belongs to the Tabligh Jamaat group, a Sunni Islamic missionary movement, adopting a Muslim name and became radicalized. He reportedly spent the early 1990s in Khartoum, Sudan, coming into personal contact with Osama bin Laden. Jamil Mukulu's Tabligh sect was instituted by the Islamic Salafi Foundation. Its effective recruitment of militants through its large network in the 1980s among the sidelined Islamic youth and propagate the exclusion of Muslims and the political decision-making process of Uganda turned the Tabligh into an important political gravity center. The origins of this sect go back to the overthrow of the ADF-an regime around 1979, which was followed by the persecutions of Muslims in southwestern Uganda. When the Ugandan court decided in favor of the Ugandan Muslim Supreme Council against the Tabligh over the leadership of a mosque in Kampala, the gradually intensified strife culminated and turned into violent attacks. President Yoweri Museveni put prominent members of the Tabligh in prison after this event. Upon their release in 1993, these prisoners fled to western Uganda, where under the leadership of Jamil Mukulu, start attacking the Ugandan regime. In September 1995, several of Tabligh Jamaat members met the Nalu remnants in eastern Congo. It was during this meeting that an alliance against the Ugandan regime was formed between these 2 rebels. ADF's dominance through NALU, the National Army for Liberation of Uganda, using this alliance was a blessing in disguise. Although it antecedent and allowance to operate at Congo to destabilize the Ugandan regime, NALU's leader, Bazira's days in Nairobi a year before made the mobilization of external support for NALU almost impossible. The new leadership was no longer able to discipline the NALU rebels, which fomented with personal and political grievances that crooked the movement into gang of bandits. According to political analysis, the personal grievance created within NALU because of the loose chain of command, and the political grievance was with regard to rank and staffing of ex-military recruits, whose motive to join the rebels was because they discharged with dishonor or left over due to their alliance with former Ugandan regime. In any case, it gave a chance and advantage to invade the Allied Democratic Forces in the Zaire Congo. The Allied Democratic Forces merger with the remnants of the National Army for the Liberation of Uganda (NALU) prioritized on the overthrow of the Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni and replacing it with an Islamic fundamentalist state. ADF's first significant attack was on November 13, 1996 on the cities of Buera and Mupuwende Lahibiriha in Kasese district, Uganda. Approximately 50 people died in the attack and 25,000 people fled the towns. Other than NALU's former Idi Amin regime officers, the group's combatant power increased by volunteers recruited from Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, Somalia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. By 2002, ADF successfully destabilized more than 80% of western Uganda districts, although lacked any serious local support and was not embedded in the society yet. The rebels' calculated and random terrors and ruthless abuse made Ugandans' death toll by this time raise to 126, while the record shows an abduction of 210 with 48 more wounded. The Ugandan army retaliated back, and due to that continuous pressure, ADF was forced to start to relocate most of its activities from Uganda into the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. Venturing there into markets such as timber, gold mining, and agriculture of the Democratic Republic of Congo market within a short period of time created 15 well-organized campus in the Rwenzori Mountains that ranged in the Democratic Republic of Congo Ugandan border areas. They also farm in the forests. But the size of the ADF has fluctuated significantly ever since. Often the decline was in response to military pressures applied against the group. The ADF waged ongoing conflicts slinging from its hidden campus against the governments of Uganda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the MONUSCO, a mission of the United Nations for the stability of the Congo. The Allied Democratic Forces hidden campus are operated like a de facto state. The rebels own a security service, a prison, health clinic, an orphanage, and schools for boys and girls. The ADF remained largely dormant in terms of violent activities from April 2007 till mid-2013 due to loss on combatant power. The Kabila's father-son government had continued forwarding a minimum financial and material support for ADF to have been playing a useful role in holding ground against several militias fighting the Congolese government around eastern Congo. ADF members, however, complained that they will only be recalled whenever the Kinshasa regime is in trouble, and as Kinshasa refused to give in to certain demands of ADF, the relationship gets soured. On July 2013, along with National Army for the Liberation of Uganda, ADF fought a ferocious battle with the Force de Army Republic Democratic Congo in the Congolese district of Beni, and briefly taking the towns of Momundioma and Totolito. Later also attacked the city of Kamango, triggering the flight of over 60,000 refugees across the border into the Ugandan district of Bundibugyo. By September 2013, regional leaders under the International Conference of the Great Lake Region requested the Combative Intervention Brigade under MONUSCO to attack positions of foreign elements operating in Democratic Republic of Congo, including the ADF. The Democratic Republic of Congo possesses one of the largest United Nations peacekeeping missions in the world. An intervention brigade was established in 2013 and authorized by the United Nations to carry out targeted offensive operations to neutralize and disarm groups considered a threat to state authority and civilian security. It aimed at giving logistical and tactical support to the Congolese forces so as to increase patrols in the village. Congolese security forces previously were accused of being unsystematic and having an inconsistent strategy of not properly utilizing the MONUSCO's mission support. The army took the offensive against ADF many times for the past 6 years. But what they did was push ADF out to the Rwenzori mountains and return to their bases without holding the areas they had taken from the rebels, as the army had no station in the forests. The Rwenzori mountains had attracted a number of rebel groups throughout history. Currently, some made it more than 40 unique non-state armed groups operated in Democratic Republic of Congo, Eastern Region, Kiev Province, including the Allied Democratic Forces. Most of them operated in overlapping areas. This tradition of armed resistance in the Democratic Republic of Congo-Uganda border has shaped considerably the ADF rebel movement. Let's focus on the two different underlying forces that evolved as an institution of armed group in Rwenzori until the mid-1990s, because it gives us more clue how ADF shaped and rooted its constituency there. The Rwenzori resistance movement took antecedent way back to the British colonial period by the Bakanjo and Bamba ethnic group requesting autonomy, which the British colonial administrators refused, and thereby triggered a guerrilla struggle against the Ugandan colonial administration. After independence, this Rwenzori group further radicalized and continued fighting for political autonomy of creating the Rwenzori United Kingdom. In western Uganda, it succeeded in reducing the authority of the Ugandan state, and it was only in August 1982, after a political settlement was reached between the Ugandan government and the leadership of the armed group, that the resistance movement withdrew itself from armed struggle. Tainted by financial and material incentives of being rebellion, not all secessionist Rwenzorians had accepted the idea of reconciliation with the government. On top of that, few attentions given for the development of the region insinuate the continuation of the sentiment for an independent Rwenzururu kingdom struggle. The Rwenzururu freedom movement, led by Richard Kinyamitsu, joined the National Resistance Army NRA of Yoweri Museveni and continued its guerrilla warfare. When NRA had taken over Kampala, the Rwenzururu still felt disgruntled, for it hadn't had major stake in Museveni's victory, and Kinyamitsu fled to Democratic Republic of Congo. There, he was joined by Amon Bazira, who was part of the old Rwenzururu leadership, and together they formed a new rebel movement, the National Movement for the Liberation of Uganda, NALU, led by Bazira. This is how the Rwenzururu freedom movement transformed to NALU, and when Bazira died, ADF stronghold came into picture. After the defeat of Mobutu Sese Seko, one of the supporters of ADF NALU rebel movement in May 1997, attacks only increased as logistics and intelligence support continued from Juba, southern Sudan, by the Sudanese regime. Economic activities came to a standstill. Local farmers were faced with continuous insecurity and the threat of being hit by landmines or being abducted or killed by ADF NALU rebels. Although the Ugandan government amnesty and demobilization campaign that followed proved to be a failure, its military offensive inside the Congo after Mobutu's failure against ADF NALU made the number of active fighters of ADF seriously minimized to a few hundreds. The support from Sudan, mainly by Sudanese Islamist politician Hassan al-Turabi, has been reduced over the years drastically as a result of the separation of Sudan into two states and the Western pressure against al-Bashir to neutralize himself from supporting Islamic fundamentalists. The rebels' movement objective to establish an Islamic State in Uganda proved to be another critical issue in attracting the ADF needed external assistance at times from Islamic fundamentalist networks. But the Islamic factor was only one of the registers at play in the ADF political goals. The limited Ugandan or Congolese state influence in the Rwenzori borderland not only facilitated the survival of different Ugandan rebel groups, but also designed their behavior and constituency. It's important to note that the presence of rebel groups could take advantage of a vibrant cross-border informal trade that connected Ugandan and Congolese communities, which led to a strong proliferation of Congolese, Rwandan, and Ugandan rebel forces that became potential partners. The solid cultural link between the Ugandan Bakonjo and the Congolese Banande tribe played an important role in this regard to develop socio-economic activities such as the cultivation of coffee and the smuggling of agricultural products from Congo to Uganda at cheap price. No one can tell the clear agenda of the ADF as either purely political or religious. NALU's propaganda for an independent state and the official recognition of the Bakonjo cultural institutions still on the air, while the rebel adopted the grievances of Islam in order to appeal to those people. Many of the young recruits also happen to be Muslims, but the actual importance and role of ADF's Islamic identity is rather contested. Of course, it relies on Al-Shabaab for training and logistic support, with limited direct involvement from Al-Shabaab's side fighters. But in combat, they collaborated with the Lord Resistance Army, in short LRA. This is why many believe the movement was not living up to the expectations of Islamic militant standards, which makes the Islamic linkage considered sporadic and not too strong. ADF rebels, throughout their stay in the Democratic Republic of Congo and their disconnection from Uganda, however, made their political and personal grievance become less and less important in relation to Uganda. Even the local Congolese chiefs nowadays seem giving political support to the ADF presence in eastern Congo, which should be read as part of a strategy aimed at reducing the influence of Hutu and Tutsi in the area. One could argue that in the end, a Congolization of the ADF took place. Many Congolese communities preferred being under the rule of the ADF rather than being protected by the Democratic Republic of Congo Army, as the soldiers of the Congolese army treated villagers as slaves. The other is ADF geopolitical importance. ADF, branded by Ugandan as the next Bin Laden Al-Qaeda of Africa, but the Ugandan government hasn't shown willingness to enter into serious peace negotiations with the movement. Since Museveni strongly condemned on his good governance in Uganda, the assumed links of the ADF with Al-Qaeda and or Al-Shabaab are therefore geopolitically useful needs to identify himself as a key associate of the US call for war on terror, which the movement's continued existence allowed him significant American military aid and diplomatic support. The continued presence of the ADF in Democratic Republic of Congo is also provided an alibi for Uganda to accommodate its hidden agenda of controlling the strategic area of Lake Albert region where oil is recently discovered. Irregular funding from the fundamentalist bloc serves the purpose, while it is confirmed that the combatants of ADF are well paid compared to other movement fighters, that defectors are almost nil. The structure of the ADF is difficult to determine. What is known is that following the 2015 arrest of Mukulu, the organization is led by Musa Balouk. Recently, a split within the organization occurred. After Balouk officiates, the ADF has ceased to exist and had incorporated itself into the Islamic State's Central Africa province. We have to outlay the recent bombings acclaim of ISIL from this perspective. What will happen for the rest of the faction then? ADF at different times attended the interests of the Sudanese or Congolese governments as part of their attempts to destabilize the Ugandan territory. The probability is that it become a borderless rebel group served for the highest bidder and, whenever narrowed, with minimum choices for survival, will turn itself into a ruthless savage movement. The United States State Department labeled ADF as a foreign terrorist organization in March 2021, which will potentially lead to serious ramifications of stigmatization on the local East Congo Muslim communities that of course create fertile ground for Balouk to infiltrate more radicalized Muslims in the near future. In short, these intertwined factors dictate us the chance for lasting peace is minimal.